Cool. All right. It says we are live. Let me make sure that we are live in Facebook. Okay. And did I not? Oh, hold on. This is what happened. Hold on. Valentine. All right, cool. We are in. Hello, everyone. So good to see you. Happy Thursday. For those of you who are new to us, my name is Stephanie McPhail. I specialize in everything from the thinking about divorce and beyond it. And I'm very excited to be sharing a 2-week summit that's really a lunch and learn about everything related to healing from unhealthy relationships, getting through that divorce, and rebuilding your life on the other side. And so we've been having, actually, David yesterday did a training on mindset, which was phenomenal. Definitely go and check that out, because mindset, it is amazing how much we are, our regiments are the things that we do are all determined by our subconscious programming. If we believe it's not possible, the chances are pretty good that it's not. We're not going to do the things that get us out of our comfort zone if we feel like it's not possible to even do them. So Dave did a really great training. We are streaming in a bunch of different places. If you missed David's training yesterday or the kickoff, I do recommend going over to our YouTube channel, which is Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. Or you can go over, if you are a female, I do recommend going over to our private Facebook group, which is Divorce Support, Heal, Rebuild, and Thrive. Definitely go ahead and join those so that you can get the replays if you can't sit for the entire 30 minutes. So today, I'm actually really excited because this is something that I think that most people going through divorces are concerned about. They are concerned about the financial impact that their divorce is going to have. There are people that will not end the relationship because they're afraid of finances. There are people going through it that are afraid of what it's going to be like when they go through the divorce. And then on the other side, they're like, how do I rebuild after I've spent all this money on a divorce? And maybe I was a stay-at-home mom, or I worked full-time and I had to give more money to my ex, whatever the case may be. And so Melissa Murphy is going to come on and share her expertise for the financial aspect of going through the process from starting out thinking about divorce and beyond it. So welcome, Melissa. I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Steph.
So tell us a little bit. First of all, this is really funny. So her and I are in a professional divorce group together. And for some reason, I happened to click on her name and found out that we have like a whole bunch of mutual friends from the island. So we're both from Long Island. And I was laughing because I was like, these are people that I know really well. How did we never meet before? So small world, meeting, on the online space, but doing something in a similar area. So I knew right away Melissa was good peeps. And when I bring people on the show, I always want to make sure that they're sharing information that's going to be really helpful. So Melissa, welcome to the show. And tell us, why did you get so passionate about doing all of this work?
Thanks so much for having me. I know it's such a small world. I don't think it was an accident that we met online. So happy to be here. I am really passionate about divorce, specifically because of my mom. I'm a child of divorce. And when my mom went through her divorce, she made a lot of decisions with her heart and not her head. And not everybody realizes when they're in that tumultuous, process of divorce, it's so emotionally draining. You're just trying to get through the day. You don't have the clarity, right? Because it's murky waters to see past, the divorce, let alone 5, 10, 20 years down the line. So I've really made it my mission to kind of be a financial advocate for people and that financial ally to help walk through this divorce process with you and really educate and empower the non-CFO spouse to make the best decisions for them and their family.
That's awesome. And it's so, and if, as someone who, and you're happily married, you have beautiful children. I've seen the photos. And so, to be a child of divorce, I'll say, a lot of people that are afraid of getting a divorce, they will say, I don't want to do it because of the kids. And it sounds like,
Mhm.
I know I say it over and over again, is that if you are someone who is not getting that divorce because you are afraid of hurting your children, knowing that staying in that toxicity is actually way worse. It is not a healthy
Definitely.
place to teach your children that that is okay. And I mean, would you, as a child of divorce, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I didn't actually know, I wasn't made aware of the toxicity of the relationship. But yeah, a lot of people stay for too long and because of the children and also sometimes because of the finances. They can't see past, like, we're barely making ends meet now. How on earth are we going to be able to do this with two houses? And having double the expenses oftentimes. So I think that's really important. And I often get brought in on cases just to say, like, hey, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I can afford it. What might this look like? Right. I'm not ready just yet, but I want to know if this is even an option. And I want people to know that there is options, because I don't want you to stay in an abusive relationship, whether it's domestic violence, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or financial abuse, because of, you know, the money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it's interesting because I was the one who made the money in my relationship. My ex was the one who did not, to say it lightly. And I was really worried also about, like, is he going to come after my pension? What is he, like, legally, what is he able to do? And that was scary too, is to think, wow, he's been mooching off of me all these years and hasn't been doing very much. And then he's going to also win again by, getting money from me. So what are some things that you think? So, I mean, okay, so I'm going to ask you, like, what are some things that you think you should share? But when you said before of people come into you before they're even thinking about divorce, I think that's really important. When you're in that headspace and you're like, I think I want to get a divorce. I think the first person to talk to is me or someone like me,
Yeah.
and then you want to talk to Melissa or someone like Melissa, and then you want to talk to the divorce lawyer. So many people get that wrong. They right away go to the divorce lawyer and then they get freaked out. Then they go back and forth because they're like, I don't know what I should do. And now I feel trauma bonded. I feel guilty. And there's all this other stuff that goes on. If you have that support system in place, you're going to make sure that you go through the process a lot easier.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I always say, people like, oh, should we call you first? And I say, no, you should call a coach first, because you need that emotional support right off the bat. That's really important. And your coach could help pair you with other professionals that will fit well with you, depending upon where you are in the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's important that these people that you like, trust, and respect them. And I'm, a big proponent of building your divorce team. You don't have to do this alone. And people are like, I can't afford to get divorced. I can't afford to have all these professionals, but it's actually more cost efficient and time efficient to have a team,
Mm-hmm.
to have a coach, to have a CDFA, and then to have a mediator or an attorney. Everybody stays in their lane and works on what their expertise is, and you get a better result with a lot less stress, a lot less time, and a lot less money.
Yeah, agreed. So for those people who are, because I know there's a lot of people that are following you, they're like, oh crap, like I'm in that beginning process, and it definitely, I keep dipping my toe in, thinking about ending it because it's been way too long of dealing with crap that I shouldn't be dealing with. What would you say to them that are staying because of the finances?
That there are options, right? And I'm happy, to meet with you. I'm happy to suggest another CDFA to meet with you and really just empower you and educate you. And you got to know your numbers, right? You got to know what assets you guys have, what liabilities you have. The liabilities is huge. Oftentimes people have no idea what debt they are in. And sometimes it's debt that you're unaware of, right? That's a joint credit card or a home equity line on the house that was opened many, many years ago. So I always suggest to run your credit report and see what lines of credit or what, access there is open. Super important. And think about, like, the income, what your income is now and what your income will be in the future, and what your expenses are now and what your expenses are. So those things are not static, right? It's cash flow. It's money in, expenses out. And oftentimes there's less money coming in and there's more expenses going out. So you have to really be realistic, and having a financial planner there to help guide you through that process to make sure that everyone's okay on the other side.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so if they are concerned because money is just barely trickling in, is there anything they can do to make sure that they are taken care of as they're going through it? Because a lot of people, they're worried about the paying the lawyer and working and dealing with the kids and like all these other things that they're doing. Is there anything that they could do to keep more money in their bank accounts?
I think it's just really to know where everything is and what everything costs, and know that there's options. Gone are the days of just like going and hiring the most expensive shark in town. I think the more collaborative approach of having a coach, having a CDFA, having a mediator or an attorney work together, you get to craft, and by staying out of court, right? You get to craft the divorce that suits you and your family. And when there's kids involved, especially, that's really important, to craft the divorce the way that you want it. And looking back, a lot of people don't know, I'm sure in your own experience, like there's regrets, right? And there's like things you're like, oh, I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have done things a little differently. Nobody told me that was an option. And so I just think having a team of professionals who really care and can provide expertise, but also empathy, will allow you to divorce differently and let you know what your options are.
It's hard though when you're so pissed off at them, right? I mean, it's like you're like, there's this, and I guess it depends on whether you're the one deciding or they're deciding. Either way, there's just so many emotions that go on. And so I don't think we always think clearly when it comes to money. I mean, I've shared this before, is that when I ended a relationship, trying to think, there was at one point, I think it was my first long-term boyfriend. He actually, like, I just wanted to be done. I didn't care. And he was like, well, I need half of the house. I had put in all the money for the house, all of the money. And I'd been paying all of the bills. And so he was like, the only way that I'll move out and whatever is if I take half of the house. And at the point I was like, screw it. I don't care. Like, I just want you out. And it was at the height of, everything to do with the housing market and everything else. And so he got a ridiculous amount of money. And in hindsight, I wish I had that money. Like, it was worth to be done with that relationship. But it was a very expensive loss that I wasn't thinking about. I wish I would have had someone to say, don't do that. There are other options of other things that you can do.
Yeah. And the house is always a big one, right? A lot of people come to me and they're like, I want to keep the house. I don't care what what it takes. I want to keep the house. And, I'm sure that you can walk through that, right? The emotional aspect of, is it really the house, or is it, I want to keep the family together. I want to keep the memories together. I don't want to, disrupt the family, the children. But we really need to make sure it's realistic to keep the house. And it's not only like, okay, let's just buy the other person out, because oftentimes then you become house poor. You have this huge house that you now have to maintain. And we think about expenses, right? And you're like, okay, I have to cut the grass, and I have the pool guy, and I have to clean it, and I have to heat it, and electric. But we're not thinking about the boiler going, replacing the roof, like all of those big ticket items that are not on our annual budget or cash flow, that can destroy you financially if you don't have that emergency fund readily available. And oftentimes when you're rebuilding, you don't have that nest egg. And now all of your assets, or a majority of your assets, are tied up in the equity of your house, which you can't necessarily live off of. It might be long-term good. And the worst part is sometimes when they, after they come to that realization, and there's that empty nesting situation where they're like, all right, this house is too big. My kids are grown. I can now sell this house. It's like, oh yeah, there's this huge capital gain that I didn't take into consideration. And now that I'm single and no longer married, I only have a $250,000 exclusion. And we bought this house a million years ago, and I'm going to have to pay tax on it. So we try to avoid all of those things and kind of play that what if scenario and show all of the different iterations of what could happen and when it could happen. And sometimes people don't think about, like, hey, what if we jointly own this house together until the children graduate from high school or from college? Like, a lot of people don't think about that, but that's an option, so that we don't have to, with the market being so high or interest rates being so low, we don't have to now refinance at 7% if we have a 3% mortgage rate. And that's another reason, with the money, the market, like how can people afford, they don't want to lose that good mortgage rate. They might not be able to requalify to buy out the other person with the mortgage. So those are all things to take into consideration and make sure that the CDFA is your financial ally through the process when you're making these big financial decisions.
Yeah. What if someone, so there's definitely conversations about, someone's retirement versus other investments that they might have had over the years. Are there any, and I know it's different for everybody, but are there any things for people to be aware of when it comes to retirement and investments?
Yeah. So I always use the example, if we have a house that's worth 250,000, a money market account worth 250,000, a Roth IRA worth 250,000, and a 401k through work worth 250,000. You might look on paper like, oh, everything's worth $250,000. Like these are all equal. I'll take two, you take two, or we'll split this. But they're not all equal. That's just a snapshot of their value today. I had a case that a client came to me after for a post-divorce transition. So after the divorce, there was, she actually, in lieu of alimony, took the house. And then I said, okay, I was going to help her, kind of with the cash flow and get her life financially organized after divorce. And I said, all right, so how are we going to pay for this house? Like, we're not. And she was like, oh, with this account here, I took this account. I'm like, this is a retirement account that you can't access until you're 59 and a half. And she kind of just looked at me like, what? And I'm like, and when you take that money out, that's taxable. And like, nobody explained this to her. So she took the house in lieu of, so she was now, asset. She had a house. That was her biggest asset. She didn't take maintenance. They bartered that. And so now she was left with this house and ended up having to sell it. It was a nightmare. But the point is that there's an education there, right? If there's access to a house, you have to know the tax consequences of the exclusion ratio. The Roth has already been taxed, so it's post-tax, so that comes out. But the traditional or the 401k, that is going to be taxable to you. But you can't touch that until you're 59 and a half without penalty. So just really educating, empowering people that not all the assets look the same. A retirement account versus a brokerage account is really different. You want to look at the cost basis of the assets and really say like, hey, if I sell this stock that's highly appreciated, I'm going to be paying capital gains on this. Like, is this something I want to do? Because that might now affect my income, which will then might affect if I qualify for healthcare insurance or, so there's that kind of like snowball effect of really getting to the bottom of it and making sure you understand it, because everything is correlated to one another. And it's overwhelming, right? It's like a different language for someone who's not the CFO of the family. It's super overwhelming. And a lot of times people just want to like brush it under the rug, right? They're just like, I don't want to deal with it. But you don't want it to build up. And if you have a professional that's willing to walk alongside you and educate you and answer your questions in a really non-judgmental way, then you'd be able to get that confidence back and you're able to say like, yeah, I can do this. I will build this back up. I will take charge of my finances. And that's the most rewarding part of my job.
Yeah. And I love that because every time I talk to anyone related to financial stuff, it's almost like they're speaking another language. You need that person that speaks that language because we're not experts in this, like for us, where we help people through the divorce, this is something you probably never had to deal with. We've got the language and the support to help you through it. When you're looking at, talking to Melissa and the financial stuff, I don't know about anyone who's watching, but unless you have like a lot of education in this is not something that most people know about. I mean, you have to really learn a lot, and you have a lot of tests and all these other things that you have to go through to know all this information. Most people are not going to know all the ins and outs of all of this. I want to jump in, by the way, and just share. There's a few people that have commented, and no matter where you are watching this from, again, make sure that you are following either on YouTube, especially if you're a guy. Our female followers, if you are not on Facebook yet, you can join us on Divorce Support, Heal, Rebuild, and Thrive, so you can watch the replays. I've got a few comments on here that I wanted to share. Jody said, house is up for sale. She just contacted an attorney by email today. Congratulations, Jody. I'm very happy for you. That means you and I need to chat as well. She said, the house is up for sale. I think hubby and his brother are creating false debt to take away from me, hoping the house sells before I file. So, I mean, I don't know if that's enough. Do you have any insight to share with Jody?
I mean, the divorce, it could be like pursuant to divorce. So you don't have to like rapid fire sell the house now. You'll still be able to exclude it if you're both joint owners on the house. But you might want to look into what's called a marital waste analysis. And that's something myself or like a forensic accountant can help with. And a lot of people do that, right? They kind of create this false debt, or they show their spending, and every time they go to the ATM or the supermarket, they'll do cash back, right? And so it looks like the expenses are higher. Or if there's a loved one that has an addiction problem, oftentimes large chunks of money get taken out. So to do that deeper dive, you want to see if there is marital waste, and we can kind of track that for the debt thing. But I wouldn't rapid fire sell your house if you don't have to. You have time for that. It can be pursuant to divorce, and kind of go alongside.
Okay, awesome. Jody, let us know if that's good, that's helpful. Christy has a question or a statement. Hubby and his brother are moving things around business-wise, including closing one down. It's terrifying as hubby is stalling the divorce every turn possible. Is there any advice you can give her for someone? I mean, he is doing, I know, Christy, he's doing some doozies trying to get out of paying whatever he can get out of. Is there anything legally that she should know, or anything that she can do to help protect herself financially?
What was the first part? It broke up a little bit.
Okay, so it says hubby and his brother are moving things around business-wise, including closing one down. Hold on. It's terrifying as hubby is stalling the divorce at every turn possible.
Yeah, so that's one of the cases where, especially small business, it's like a big thorn in everyone's side, because oftentimes there's two sets of books, right? It's like, okay, our business is worth only $50,000, but we're running our whole life through it, right? The cars, the insurance, the dining out, the credit cards are all getting run through that small family business, and nobody wants the IRS to start looking into that. But yeah, so you would need like a small business valuation for those things. And oftentimes if they're closing it and there's partnerships, there's like separate property tracing, right? To make sure that you're entitled to a portion of that. Like if they're filtering it to the brother, say, or if they're filtering it to another business or to another asset. There's some deep diving, and it will cost money, but it's worth it if there's assets there. And it's one of those things where sometimes, like you said, right, you're just like, I'm done with this. I just want to be done. Not knowing. And that's kind of like where the CDFA comes in, to be like, no, we're going to fight for this. Like it's going to be more cost effective. You're going to come out better on the other side, to make sure that we uncover these hidden assets, or, the mismanaging of money, the marital waste. So yeah, small business valuation is important, and really tracking, we can kind of do separate property tracing there for that.
Okay. All right. She says she does have a CDFA. So Christy, make sure that you are getting those questions answered by your CDFA. Thank you. All right. Sarah has a question. I'm very curious about what is the best, fastest way to build credit. I was married for 20 years, even though all of our assets were in both of our names. The bank informed me that all the credit went to him, the primary, so I have basically no credit. I hear this a lot, Sarah. I did get a credit card. What else do you recommend? I am in Canada, if that helps.
I don't know all the banking laws in Canada, but something that I always suggest when there is a credit issue or lack thereof, you can do what's called a CD secured loan. So you can go to the bank and say, okay, I'm going to put $1,000 into the CD. It doesn't have to be large money. It could be $1,000 into the CD. And then what you do is say, I'm going to take a loan against this CD. And what the bank wants to see is that you're paying this loan back. And so it'll cost you interest, right? You're going to pay back more than the $1,000, or the loan has to be less than the $1,000, but you are making 12 payments monthly. And the easiest thing to do is set it up in a bank, have it all automatic, so you don't even have to mess with it. And so that money gets taken out, and it shows, okay, I'm making payments on time. And then when you're done paying back that loan, the CD is now up, and you now have that $1,000 back. So it's called a CD secured loan. You can go to your local bank, ask them about it. And that's a good way to have credit. Make sure all your bills are paid on time. And, opening that credit card is a good first start.
That is, and thank you so much for asking that question, Sarah, because that happens more often than you realize. Even in the best of relationships, my in-laws, my father-in-law found out he's like 90, and he found out that he had terrible credit and couldn't get credit. And it's because he had gotten a credit card that was put as a business card. So here he was using this card for like 40 years, thinking he was building his own credit. And realistically, it wasn't at all. So he was like, what? What is happening here? So it's a really good idea. I don't care where you're at in any of this. Make sure that your credit is taken care of. Like, have your own stuff. It is way too often, it's more common with the ladies, is that everything is in the spouse's name. And then if something happens, it might not even be divorce. It could be that they pass away or something else happens. You want to make sure that you have that safety of having something in your name for your credit score.
Definitely.
Excellent. All right. Are there any other questions? Oh, here's another one. Nope, that was it. All right. No other questions. Okay. If there are any other questions, you can always, again, if you are in the Facebook group or you are on YouTube, you can always come back and ask questions. Melissa will be available to answer questions. You can always send her a private message and she'd be happy to ask questions. I have, in the idea of this being your own Valentine, is there anything that you can suggest to anybody who's watching, whether, it's your own little 2 cents or something related to finances, but how can people really make sure that they are keeping in mind that they have to be their own Valentine?
I think it's really important to build your team and to know that you don't have to take this walk alone. If you think about getting married, right, there's that bridal party, there's that maid of honor, there's all these celebrations, and we're doing it together. Obviously divorce is not always such a happy time, but you still can have a support system around that. And not everyone has friends and family to be able to support them. So coaches, CDFAs, those are the people that will help you provide expertise and empathy and make sure that you see the clarity through this process.
Yeah. And again, like one of the things I say all the time is it's okay to take care of yourself. I mean, especially through this process, we put all of our wants and needs on the back burner. We're worried about everybody else. We don't want to, be hurtful to anybody or whatever. Divorce, the process, anywhere before, after, this is all about you really reconnecting to self and sticking up for yourself. And for those areas that you're not as aware of, you want to make sure that you have those experts to be able to help be the support that you need, that you might not be aware that you need throughout the process. So yeah, I love that, Melissa. I appreciate that. So
yeah.
I
always feel self-care. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish, and financial freedom is the best form of self-care.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. Financial freedom is base. People say that money doesn't buy happiness, but I will tell you, I am much happier if I have money in my account than if I don't. I can do a lot of other fun things and have much more freedom if I have money in my account. So yeah, I totally agree with that. We're getting towards the end, Melissa. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? And also, how can people get a hold of you if they'd like to chat?
Yeah, sure. My website is Mindful Divorce Partners. So just mindfuldivorcepartners.com. I do offer complimentary consultations, get to know you. You can pick my brain. I'm a big proponent of just know your worth, ask questions, know that there's options and resources. If I can't help you, I'm happy to connect you to another professional that can help.
Awesome. And how can they find you? They just go online or?
Yeah, on my website or LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Melissa Murphy Pavone, and the company is Mindful Divorce Partners.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us. As a reminder, we will be going live for the next 2 weeks right here in the group and on the other social medias. Again, if you want to watch the replay, that's going to be on YouTube or in our private Facebook group, Divorce Support, Heal, Rebuild, and Thrive. So make sure that you are joining us, and invite your friends. There are a lot of people who need this information. There are a lot of people who are struggling and not telling anybody that they are struggling. So great friendly advice is to remind them that they are not alone. They can come and join us and watch all of these and get that added support no matter where they are in the divorce process, whether they're just starting to think about it, or they're on the other side and they're asking themselves, now what? Or they're even thinking about dating and they're like, I would like to date, but I don't ever want to fall into the same patterns in future relationships. Let's make sure that we really protect you, we take care of you, and give you the guidance, support, and tools that you need to create a life that you're excited to wake up to every day. So thank you so much for Melissa for coming and hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for tuning in with us. We will see you tomorrow. It will be me. I will be sharing some information about the process of rebuilding after your divorce. So come out and hang out with us tomorrow at noon Central or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And never forget, you are way stronger than you realize. See you next episode. Bye, everybody.